Shh.
Okay, this is in memory of my mother, Oliver Shalom's 23rd yortzeit. It was Yotet Marcheshvan that just came out today. As Corrine said, her name also was Braina Bat Yoshi Yisrael V'Chava Bracha. And I just want to tell you a little bit. Jewish life, we grew up in Chicago, and Jewish life was very different than what we are experiencing today, especially in New York. There was a small group in Chicago that were Kol Mizrahi, B'nai Akiva, that's where we grew up. And my mother, Shalom, was known as the hostess with the mostest. She had every year that she sponsored a Hanukkah party. It was called the Chana Mosaic Aid Society. And there were, in those years, we're talking about, she passed away in 1990, so 50 years before that, there were survivors that were coming over from Europe that were mishpacha. And the money that they raised at this Hanukkah party, I remember they sold candles, they sold latkes, they sold dreidels, whatever. But that money helped pay the rent for those people who didn't have a place to go in order to integrate them into America, into Chicago Jewish life. And Chicago was a very small, today it's the third largest Jewish community in the world, but we're talking about 3 generations later and the benefit of much day school education, Baruch Hashem.
What was her family name? What was your family?
Qualwasser, and half the family is in Eretz Yisrael. My mother's name was Pfefferman, and I realized also it was the Chana Mosaic Aid Society, but my name is Chana Esther. So it's a whole chain of events that have gone down, and I am sorry for the way that you don't have the text in front of you, but it's okay. We're going to manage fine. Okay. So, and this topic, this chapter talks about Hinei Mafsidei Hamidazot Umer Chakia Hem Shlosha. There are three factors that we're going to talk about in this parak. One is Ha'achadu Atipul V'Atir Da'olamit, the things that we worry about in this world, and the first is involvement and preoccupation with worldly manners. The second is Haschok V'Halatzon. The second is levity and mockery. Hashlishi Achevra Hara, and the third is bad company. And Rabbi Latsato says we're going to talk about each one distinctly. So let's get them straight. The first is involvement and preoccupation with worldly affairs. The second is levity and mockery, and the third is keeping bad company. Okay. So, Hinei Hatipo Vatirda, this is the first one we're talking about. With respect to involvement in preoccupation with worldly affairs, we have already spoken of them above. He's backtracking. That when a man is preoccupied only with the affairs of the physical world, his thoughts are bound by the change of burdens that are upon them. And it becomes impossible for his thoughts to focus on deeds to ensure that they are proper ones. So now he's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you a story to start it out, because I think that I've learned from the classroom. I was basically chairman of the Jewish History Department in the Miami Beach Hebrew Academy. The title means nothing. But every time I walked into a class, the response was, hey, teach, do we have to read that? You know that, right? If you're teachers, you know that. And finally, I said, yes, you have to read it, and it didn't work. I would walk into in those days, they didn't have Jewish history books like Rabbi Wein either. We were reading Grazel, Margolis, and Marx. Are you familiar with the Shalkom at the Kopia? It was really, okay, bad. So I started telling them stories. And the stories all related, which is the third set of books that I wrote. There was a collection of our stories, and illustrate what's going on. So let me illustrate what I just read to you with a story. Okay. According to a Midrashic source, the Almighty consulted Eliyahu. Shall I create man? Eliyahu Hanavi responded, Master of the world, if it is your plan for man to be part of your creation, then create him. If you wish it, I volunteer to descend into the world which you create and serve man by teaching him Torah. Since that time, Eliyahu has roamed the world, teaching Torah to the righteous and inspiring the humble. One day, Eliyahu walked along the banks of a river, noticed a fisherman from the wharf. He stopped to engage him in conversation. Fisherman, how do you earn your living? The man was surprised that the stranger had stopped to talk to him, but he answered, I earn my living by fishing. What else do you? Asked Eliyahu. The fisherman lowered his head. He was too embarrassed to respond. He didn't do very much. Finally, the fisherman whispered, I do nothing else. I devote my days and nights to fishing because my life depends on it. I don't know if there is any more to life than fishing. Let me ask you another question, said Eliyahu Hanavi. Have you ever studied Torah? No, I have never had the opportunity to study Torah, nor do I think that I have the capacity to understand. Tell me, what kind of a fisherman are you? Me, I'm the greatest fisherman on this wharf. I told you that I devote much of my time to fishing. I devote every waking hour, every ounce of my strength. I spend so much time fishing because I know that my life depends on it. Now Eliyahu responded, Fisherman, fisherman, if only you understood that there is more to life than fishing. If only you understood that your life really depends on studying the mysteries of God's Torah. If only you exerted as much effort on Torah as you do on fishing. You would be the greatest scholar on this wharf, the greatest scholar who walked the face of the earth. And this is what Ramchal is talking about when he's talking about the first bad midah is preoccupation with worldly matters and not letting time for our neshama to grow, to develop with Yirat Shamayim. This is what he's talking about. Okay, so let me go back to where I left off. Ve'iyafshar lahem latet lev el hamaseh. And it becomes impossible for thoughts to focus on Torah, on deeds, to ensure that they are proper ones. Now the Ramchal says, how are we going to avoid this obstacle? When the sages, peace be upon them, perceived this problem, they said, lower your involvement in business, which is what Eliyahu told the fisherman, and involve yourself in Torah study, which is what we're sitting here and doing. This is an amazing community resource. Reduce your involvement in business and endeavors and involve yourself in Torah study. For indeed, some involvement with business is essential for a person for the sake of his sustenance, but it's not necessary that his business involvement be so extensive, so that he does not leave any room for his divine service. In other words, I'll study tomorrow when I have time. Meantime, you curl up with another book and you fall asleep, and then it's gone. So that he's not leave room for his divine service. This is why we are commanded to set aside fixed times for study Torah every single day. Okay, and Hilchos Shabbos, I have to find where Ramchal makes it clear that he does not advocate that a person separate himself completely from normal life. Working for a livelihood is fully compatible with ascending the ladder of spirituality, which he discussed in chapter 2. However, if one becomes so preoccupied with work that he does not leave himself adequate time for learning Torah and contemplating his behavior, Eventually, his enthusiasm for mitzvos will wane and his spiritual growth will be undermined. It is precisely in this gray area, determining what is essential and what is unnecessary, that the Yetzer Hara expends much of its energy. Don't study, go to the library, go to the movies, go shopping. That's what the Yetzer Hara is telling you. And by the time you get to the ikar of what Jewish life is, to immerse yourself in Torah study, the time is over. It's a quote from the Chavetz Chaim. Okay. Let me see where we are here. Okay. Ramchal explains the unique connection between studying Torah and acquiring the trait of Zehirut, which is mindfulness. We have already mentioned in previous chapters that Torah study is the most critical necessity for a person to attain Zehirut. As Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair stated in the Baraisa, in the Gemara, Torah mevia lidei Zehirus. Torah study brings one to Zehirus. Without Torah, one will not attain Zehirut at all. This is what the sages of blessed memory said. Lo ama aretz chasid. An ignorant person cannot become a chassid. We understand that because if we don't have a way, a derech halimud, it's not only learning the text, it's the way we live. If we don't know that way, then how can we live the Jewish life that we are supposed to live? Okay, I just want to make sure that there's not a story in between here. Okay, footnotes 3 and 5. Okay, the Mishnah states that literally, that an ignoramus cannot be a chassid. He cannot attain the trait of chassidus, of piety. Chassidus here is interpreted as piety. Ramchal, however, understands this to mean that he cannot even begin to climb the ladder that leads to chassidus. The very first stage in the effort for spiritual growth is the acquisition of Torah knowledge. Do you ever wonder why? These thoughts, as I'm speaking, these thoughts are just coming to my head. Why are we starting with Aleph Beis and teaching my I have twin grandsons? They're just turning 7. They're already learning Chumash. I was babysitting yesterday because the boy was sick. It's a boy and a girl. He was home from school, and Bubby had to come to babysit because Mommy goes to work. And we were doing Chumash homework. He's in learning Parshas Lech Lecha, Perek Yotet. I mean, this is the way, this is the derech halimud, this is the way we go. This is the prerequisite for a progress in the acquisition of Zehirut. Without Torah, even those basic introductory stages on the road to Chassidus cannot be reached. Okay, so we have an idea of what this is talking about now. Okay, and the story that goes with this is, okay, the story that goes with this. Okay. Among the Hasidim who bade farewell to Reb Mordechai Chernobyler, after having spent Shabbos with him, was a simple but honest merchant. Reb Mordechai singled him out from the group before everybody left after Shabbos. Tell me, he said, how do you spend your days? Well, Rebbe, he responded, I rise very early in the morning immediately. I wash my hands, I dress, I go directly to the marketplace to buy whatever I need for that day from the farmers who come to town to sell their merchandise. When I finish there, I return home and then I daven. You understand already the problem, right? Okay. But the story will help. Okay. You should not delay davening, said Rabbi Mordechai. First you should daven, then you should conduct your business. But, said the merchant, you don't understand. It takes time to convince someone. If I take the time to daven first, all the farmers will have sold their merchandise to the other merchants who arrive earlier, and there will be nothing left for me to buy. Let me tell you a story, said Reb Mordechai. Once there was a very resourceful traveling salesman who had amassed a fortune. At the end of a very successful business trip, he found that he had earned 12 gold coins and 1 copper coin. He had reached the end of his usual route and was ready to return home. But being very tired, he decided to remain in the shtetl until after Shabbos.
Knowing that his coins were very valuable, he wanted to leave them locked up over Shabbos with someone he trusted. On acquiring, he assured that the innkeeper was honest, so he made arrangements to stay there for Shabbos, and the innkeeper put his coins in the strongbox. All the 25 hours of Shabbos, he was plagued with doubt. Could he depend on the innkeeper's honesty? What if he refused to return the gold coins? What if he ran off with his money? The merchant did not enjoy the Shabbos food. He didn't enjoy the Shabbos shalent. He could not concentrate on the Shabbos tefillot, nor could he sleep that Friday night. As soon as Shabbos was over, the merchant ran to the innkeeper and asked him to return the bag of coins that he had locked in his strongbox. Seeing his guest so agitated, the innkeeper stopped what he was doing, went to the room where he locked up the valuable coins and retrieved them. The merchant opened the small bag and counted the gold coins. He breathed a sigh of relief when he found all 12. Then he remembered that he had not seen the copper coin. Even before he looked, he suspected that the innkeeper had taken his copper coin. How foolish he felt when he removed the gold coins and found the copper coin at the bottom of the bag. Now, Reb Mordechai lowered his voice. Do you see how foolishly the merchant acted? If he counted the 12 gold coins and found them all, why would he suspect that the innkeeper had taken the least precious of them all? I need to teach you the lesson of the story, said Reb Mordechai. You entrust your neshama in the hands of the Ribono Shel Olam every night. It is your most precious possession, like the gold coins that belong to the merchant. Yet when you arise each morning and you realize that your most precious possession is returned to you in purity and holiness, you doubt that you'll be able to make a living, your sustenance. Your copper coin will be denied you. You run off to the marketplace and delay thanking God for returning to you your most precious possession. If you really believe that your soul was more precious, you would not delay davening. You would thank your Creator first and trust that He would see to your sustenance. The merchant understood his Rebbe's parable. From then on, he rose, washed his hands, davened, then went to the marketplace to attend to business matters. Okay, so let's go back to the text now. Okay. Okay. V'zeh ki haborei yisbarach shemo shebarah hayetzer hara b'adam. This is because the Creator, blessed be His name, who created the evil inclination within a person, hu shebarah haTorah tavlin lo. It is the very one who created the Torah as the antidote. I need to explain this. Torah, the antidote is evil. How do we fight the evil? By living a life of Torah, right? So this is what the Ramchal is saying. As the sages of blessed memory said, Barasi Yetzer Hara, I created the evil inclination. Barasi Lo Torah Tavlin, I created Torah as an antidote to the Yetzer Hara. Vinay Pashut here, now it's obvious. She'im habarei lo bara lamakazu ela refuazu. If Hashem wouldn't have created only this ailment with the evil inclination, with the study of Torah, efshar b'shum panim shir padam zot hamakabelti bilti zot refu. It is absolutely impossible for a person to be cured of this ailment without utilizing this memory. So he's just giving you an example for barasi Torah, barasi Yetzer Hara. If whoever thinks that he can be rescued from the evil inclination without Torah is simply mistaken. Okay. No, I think it's embedded in us from the time we were children. I mean, I grew up again in Chicago, and if something happened, and then I had to come home and tell my parents, the answer was, it's pasnish for a yid. And I don't know much Yiddish, but I remember that. It's pasnish for a yid. We don't do those things. We don't act that way. And even more, why were we more an example? Because the first day school in Chicago was called the Hebrew Parochial School. It went till 4th grade. And then 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we were in public school because there was no yeshivas and there was no day school. There was a Chicago yeshiva called, was the Hebrew Theological College. but they had no school. It was a yeshiva. And then Rav Rappaport, all of a shalom, came along and he said, I'm starting the Chicago Jewish Academy. And he raised the money, and it started in 9th grade, and then a 10th grade, and they added a grade every year, so we all graduated. And you know what happened? That school was walked away from the city of Chicago. The test that they give for college entrance exams, there were more proportionately high-level scores in that school because he was so makpid, not only Limudei Kodesh, but if you're an example to the world, it was Limudei Chol also. So we had, it was good memories. Okay, now, if I keep telling you the stories, then I'm losing the place over here. Okay, for consider the evil inclination is really very strong within a person, and if left unchecked, then without a person's awareness, it grows and it grows and eventually dominates him. The Gemara in Sukkah states at first, the Yetzer Hara manifests only as external influence, like a wayfarer who entices a person from afar. Then it strengthens itself and becomes an eternal desire, like a guest within him. Ultimately, if the Yetzer Hara is not rejected, it becomes the master of the house and totally overwhelms the person, right? This just dawned on me as I'm speaking. I don't know how many of you are makpid on, nothing to do with kashrus, on diets, because you're not supposed to eat salt, you're not supposed to have sugar. How many of you go around saying, a little bit of salt can't hurt? This little piece of candy can't hurt? But then what happens? One piece of candy, Okay, so this is what the Ramchal is trying to tell us. Don't open the door to the Yetzer Hara. Okay. He will not be aware or even feel the strengthening of the spiritual illness because he keeps giving in until he dies, and that's the end of his neshama. So how do we want our neshamas to be represented to HaKadosh Baruch Hu after 120 years? This is the goal of what we're talking about, is the reward of Schar Olam Haba. Okay. Halamad, to what may this be compared? To a sick person who consulted with doctors, who diagnosed his illness. And the doctor said to take a certain medicine. But he, without any proper knowledge of the science of healing, he set aside the medicine and take whatever medicine enters his eyes. Enters his mind. What happens if the doctor prescribes for you an antibiotic and you take a bunch of vitamins instead? Okay? Won't the sick person certainly die? So too it is with the matter of the evil inclination, not to open the door to let the evil inclination in a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to skip a little bit of this. When a person commits a sin repeatedly, it becomes so ingrained and habitual that he considered it to be tolerable and even permissible. Right? The example on a very low level is with a diet and food. But what about with midot? What about with lo taseh? Things that we're not allowed to do from Torah law? Oh, just one time hurts. One time it doesn't hurt. Nothing is going to happen. And it perpetuates and grows. This is true even regarding actions that one knows are wrong, and certainly regarding those of a doubtful nature. Ignorance will thus breed transgressions of the Torah, and these acts become part of a person's lifestyle and daily routine, making it extremely difficult to reverse the process. Okay. Let me see. Okay. And I just want to sum up the first part.
It's not working.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I want to make sure that I have time to finish.
The clock is on the shtender on the left corner, on the right corner side.
Okay, I have my watch. Okay. Okay. אם ואך אם הוא עוסק בתורה בראותו דרכיה ציוויה והצהרותיה, הנה סוף סוף מאליו יתחדש בו התעוררות שיביא אל הדרך הטוב. But Ramchal explains how Torah study as an antidote to the evil inclination, however it is Torah study. If one involves himself in Torah study, and when he sees the wisdom of its ways, its commandments, and its warning, in due course there will automatically be kindled with him a spirit of inspiration that will bring him to the proper path. This is what the sages of blessed memory meant when they stated, Halo oti azavu v'torati shomaru. This is very famous. It's from Eicha Rabbah. It's the Basikta and Eicha Rabbah. Hashem says, what they had left me behind, but still observed my Torah. I need to explain this to you. When we are living a life of mitzvot, we have Hashem in mind, because why are we doing it? Because by Tzav Moshe B'nai Israel, it's mitzvah, it's command, right? So that's why we're doing it. But do we have to think in terms of theological terms that all the big university papers are writing papers on theology and philosophy? What does that have to do with living a life of Torah? And the chances are that what they're writing and thinking about and perpetuating for the Hamon Am is not reflecting on even the lives that they are personally living, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? If you know, and in order for there's times when I pick up this stuff because I have to see what's going on in the world that I'm degrading, no, but that's what it is. What are they doing? What are they teaching us? Do they teach us the sanctity of Shabbos? You know, I remember my father Shalom worked very, very hard. They were in the fish business. And he left very early in the morning. We didn't see him until Friday afternoon. Especially during Lent, which is the non-Jewish celebration. I think before Easter, is it? Whatever. Anyway, when he came home Friday afternoon, we, the children, had better have had a Devar Torah for him. What am I sending you to school for? That was the Shabbos table. It's Mirot. It was a Devar Torah. Because during the week, he didn't have time to farher us. I know my kids now, I talk about my twins all the time. But one day I'll bring them and you'll meet them. They're really cute. But their parents are on their back. And the reason I was there yesterday was because I was on Mordechai's back. He didn't get away with, I'm coming to school today. He went to school that the homework wasn't done because the Tita Rebbe sent it home. But when I was growing up, it was the Shabbos table. Because there was my father Shalom was not around. He was working. He was trying to make parnasa so he could pay day school tuition. Okay, I think we should go to the second category, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know. You don't have text anyway. Okay. Okay. Achasheni, hinehu kashemiyo. The second midah that he's talking about is the most difficult. Hu aschok v'halatzon. It is the second factor that undermines the Hebrews is very difficult to remedy. It, namely, levity and mockery, cynicism. For one who sinks in them is like one who is drowning in the great sea, for which was very difficult to escape. Ramchal explains the negative nature of levity. Instead of just reading the Hebrew, I think we'll save more time. I know how to read Hebrew, so I don't think that I need to read it. I just want to focus on the parish because the clock moves. For consider levity. Levity destroys the focus and sensitivity of a person's heart, so that reason and intellect no longer rule him. As a result of the constant levity, a person is like a drunkard or an imbecile, and we have been in those kind of environments where it's one joke after another, and then the jokes get dirty, they get obscene, and then you want to walk away, you want to hide, you don't want to be in that environment. Whom it is impossible to imbue with good judgment or to guide toward proper behavior because they think they're fantastic. Because such people do not accept guidance. This is what Shlomo HaMelech, peace be unto him, said when he said, Lischok amarti maholal lisimcha mazot. I said of levity, it is madness, and of joy, what does it accomplish? So I see where I wrote a red line here. Okay. Now, the Torah is very clear how, and this is the opposite of levity. And it's written in Parshat Eikev, parts of it, and it's very important that I share this with you. Parshat Eikev. Vayam shamo tishma, l'kol shema kecha lavdo b'chol levavchem. If you will listen and serve Hashem with all your hearts, it's Devarim Perek Chet, near Sheni, near the second Aliyah. Hishamar lecha pen tishkach et Hashem Elokecha. Remember, don't forget Hashem. Levotish shmor mitzvotav. How do we remember? Which we just said. How do we remember? By doing. Umishpatav v'chukatav. How do we remember? By doing. Okay? Now, mitzvah. Explain. What is a mitzvah? It's the name that's given. It is the noun that is for all the details of all the dinim and all the halacha. Okay? Edut is the laws between of Shabbos and Yontif, because in Kiddush we say Shabbos all the time. Edut beinu ben bnei Israel, right? Chukim are things tamim lo niglu. They're things that we do like Torah Aduma. The parsha starts out, Zochukat Torah. What is it? It's not privy for us, but we have to do it anyway. Okay? So that's what it's, okay, and okay. Now, the result is, Kihem chayenu va'orech yameinu uvehem negeh yomam v'layla. And in order to remember chukim, mitzvah, mishpat, we say it twice a day. The first time is Ava Rabbah before Shema, and in Mariv, Avat Olam. We say it twice a day, Kihem chayenu v'orech yameinu v'hem negeh yomam v'layla, to remind us. Okay. Then, when the Jewish people crossed into Eretz Yisrael, what was the message that Yeshua left them? Okay, it's the first parak in Sefer Yeshua. Lo yamush Sefer Torah hazeh mipicha. It should not go out of your mouth. Talk about it all the time. V'giseh bo yomam v'layla. Absorb in it day and night. Involve yourself. L'man tishmor lasot. In order that you should do it. Okay, and then hundreds of years went by, and Rabbi Akiva has the opposite, which is what we're talking about. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Schok v'kal l'throsh mavirin et hadam la'erva. When we do exactly what Ramchal is saying, but Rabbi Akiva said it 2,000 years before, if everything is very funny, and everything is lewd, and everything is without seichel, what happens? Mevim et hadam la'erva. You end up in a place where the word erva actually is nakedness or sinfulness or something. It's a place we don't want to be. Okay? And then he concludes in that Mishnah in Avos, Sigad lachachma shtika. Right? We're all shakar. We know. We learn Pirkei Avos. The boundary of wisdom, Sigad lachachma shtika. Don't go there. Don't talk about it. Don't do it. Protect yourself. Okay. All right. Let's see what. Okay. So that was the beginning of 2. Okay. For consider levelly destroys the focus and sensitivity of a person's heart. In addition to impeding one's spiritual growth, levity can actively lead to sin. The sages of blessed memory said further, levity and frivolity accustom a person to immorality. With this statement, the sages convey the insidious power of levity. For though immorality is considered a grave transgression by any religious person, his heart fears to even approach such a sin, due to the impression that he is already etched in his mind. As to the true magnitude of this transgression and the great punishment for it, nevertheless, levity and frivolity draw him to immorality little by little. This is the example that I keep giving. One step, the next step is not so bad, then pretty soon you're sunk in. And bring him closer to moral deeds, so that the fear of committing such a serious sin is removed from him step by step. You're losing your conscience when you take one step, until eventually he reaches the sin itself and commits it. And why does levity reduce one's fear of sin to such an extent? Because just as the very essence of Zahirus is dependent upon paying attention to something, so too the very essence of levity is nothing but to distract the heart from proper and insightful ways. The exact opposite of Zahirus, so that thoughts of fear and sin will never enter one's mind. So when you go in one direction, the whole purpose of levity is to move you away from the direction that we are supposed to be going. Okay. The Nimsashal, and so Tzad oath will never enter one's mind, and I made a red line here, and I don't know what the other part. Okay. Okay. Let me see, I'm at 104. Okay. 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 The purpose, what the focus of mockery and scuffling is, of Latzon, is destroys all the matters of what is right and what is wrong, and Yira. How do we translate Yira? You say fear? Awe. That's what I wanted. Reishis Chachma Yirat Hashem. If we stand before Hashem in awe, then it's not fear of punishment, Yira, but it's awe. I love you so much, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm not going to do anything to hurt your feelings. This is really what Yira means. It's awe of who we are. And that we don't want to besmirch the name of what an Ish Kadosh is, of what a holy person is. Okay. Okay. Ramchal cites from scriptures to illustrate his point. Okay, this is from Yeshayahu. Behold, the prophet Yeshayahu cried out like a crane about this affliction of mockery, for we saw that this was the obstacle that left no room for his reproof to make an impression upon the people. We know it was not only Yeshayahu. The people were throwing stones at him, and Yirmiyahu, they put him in jail because they didn't like what he was telling the Jewish people to do tshuva at the time of Churban Bayit Rishon. Yeshayahu was not listened to. There were other Nevi'im also at the time. If you go to the beginning of Trei Asar, it's in chronological order, Trei Asar. So it's Hosea, Amos, Micha, Obadiah, Yonah. That's lived the time of Yeshayahu. And look at what they're talking about. They're talking about not the Jewish people not paying attention, which resulted in, of course, Churban Bayit Rishon. This is what Yeshayahu meant when he said, so now do not scoff, lest your affliction become even more severe, because we stopped paying attention. Okay, and I'm watching the SWA, and I want to go to the third one. Okay. Okay, where does he start? The third one. Okay. Now, the third bad quality that Ramchal is talking about is the company that we keep. The gang, the people of sinners and people that do a tipesh, do something wrong. The chote, grammatically, there are different words for chet, onesh, Yom Kippur. You stand al chet, al onesh, al pesha. Chet is someone that does something on purpose. So you don't want to be in the company of that. Okay, so, okay. Okay, for indeed we see many times that even after a person truly recognizes the obligation of divine service and the zahirus, the awareness needed for it, he will become lax about it or transgress some of its rules so that his friends will not laugh at him. We're all experienced this. No, why do you have to shop in, I don't want to name any of our kosher stores because then they'll think, but why do you want to stay there and not in Key Food? What difference does it make? Maybe it's cleaner there. Maybe it's, you're always concerned about where your friends are making fun of you and you don't want that. You don't want to be the butt of their criticism or so that he can mingle with them. You want to have more friends, but it's the wrong company. This is what Shlomo HaMelech warned about, saying, Im shonim al tesarev, be careful who you mingle with. With dissenters, do not mingle. Okay, and I think, this is page 108. Okay. All right, the time is moving very fast. It's sort of, okay, so, okay. Having established the need to avoid negative social influences, Ramchal addresses an apparent contradiction to this principle. Okay. Now, if someone will say to you that the Gemara states, someone's going to argue with you, say, oh, you can't be antisocial. Go along for the ride. How many times have we heard this? We're only going da-da-da-da-da, we're only going there. It's okay, nothing is going to happen. And Ramchal says, no. A person's mind should always be integrated with society. Does this mean that one should always socialize with those around him? You too should say to him, in what context are these words stated? They are stated regarding people who perform deeds fitting for man, but not regarding people who perform deeds fitting for animals. So we're given the seichel to understand, is this bakavadik for a yid, or is it not? Ramchal cites spiritual proofs to be the principle that one must avoid such people. Shlomo HaMelech warned further, Lech mineged le'ish bitul, go far away from a man who is a fool, v'derech HaMelech Amar, and David HaMelech said, Ashrei ha'ish asher halach, I have the whole pasuk, it's beautiful. It's something that, okay, it's Tehillim, it's the role that we have to lead. David HaMelech opens Tehillim. Ashrei ha'ish, happy is the man, asher lo halach b'yatzas r'sha'im, that doesn't, there's a general gradation. Asher lo halach, that he doesn't walk. B'yatzas r'sha'im. Okay. Walking, you keep moving. But when sinners, lo amad, he stands still, then what happens? The influence is that much greater. And then he's standing. First he's walking, he can walk away. Then he's standing, and he's stuck. But then he sits down, and he does everything that in that environment that is totally contrary to Torah, to a Torah lifestyle. So what's David HaMelech's hefech? What's his suggestion? We have to involve ourselves in Torah day and night. Okay? Oh, that's what I explained it to you before. Okay. Im Sofer Lamod, the sage's blessed memory, the lesson of the verse, the first one. If one merely walks upon a sinful path, eventually he will stand and linger there. Once he stands on such a path, he will eventually sit and associate with scoffers, which in turn will lead him to become a scoffer like them. And David said, Lo yashavti im Maseshav sanesi kahal reim. I have not sat with dishonest people and do not associate with hypocrites. I hate the gathering of evildoers, and with the wicked I will not sit. This is how David protected himself from negative influences. I mean, it's mamash chachma. David HaMelech was the most powerful ruler, human being in the Middle East and Eretz Israel at that time. If I tell you how much land they had conquered, you will be amazed. You know the borders of Iran, not Iraq, Iran, to Nahar Mitzrayim. All that land was under Jewish auspices. There were 13 governors that were responsible only to the king. And David HaMelech is saying, I'm not mixing, I'm not going to the governor's parties, even though they were under his rule. I'm not going to the foreigner's place. I'm not going to wherever else was in the known world. But I hate gathering of evildoers and putting a line. I'm not going there until with the wicked I will not sit. This is how David HaMelech protected himself from their negative influences. Okay, so now, and I want to finish because I see the time is moving. Okay, I want to finish with a story that is I think one of my most beautiful. I'm going to only do part of it, but let me give you the background. The Sanzer Rebbe was Reb Chaim Halberstein. The name of the story is And the Ministering Angels Sang, and it seems that his wife, Rebbetzin Rachel Fagel, was a bookkeeper, and she earned enough money that she sustained the family. And not only the family, but hundreds of people that came for Shabbos. Okay? Now, once it turned out that it wasn't such a good week. So her name, I'm starting in the middle of the story, I just want to film the background. Her name was Rachel Fagel. Now, Shaul, the richest man in Sanz, was on his way to the inn where each night he and his friends gathered. Gambling was his one form of entertainment. He worked very hard all day to earn plenty of cash during business hours to spend in games of chance each night. Sometimes he lost all his earnings, but usually he was lucky. More often than not, the indiscriminate turning of the wheel of fortune netted him a larger sum than he had speculated at the outset. On this particular Friday evening, he had placed on the seat next to him in his magnificent carriage 3 expensive bottles of wine to share with his friends. Wine he had purchased on a recent business trip to the big city. He was all set for an entertaining evening when he encountered Rebbetzin Rachel Fagel, waving her hands furiously at his oncoming carriage. When he first noticed her, he was tempted to ignore her. He did not want anything to interfere with his plans. But Shaul was curious. Why, he wondered, is this woman standing at the crossroads in the middle of Friday afternoon, waving furiously at passerbys? He reined in his horses, alighted, and asked Rachel Fagel what he could do to help her. She told him the whole story, how her husband had distributed at least 1,000 rubles for tzedakah that day, but left her without sufficient money to prepare for Shabbos because he knew she could take care of herself. Shaul put his hand in his pocket and generously withdrew 100 rubles. Here, take this money. I am sure you still have enough time to purchase what you need and prepare it before candle lighting. Rachel Fagel was surprised by Shaul's generosity. Thank you for rescuing me from my dilemma is not adequate. I bless you that wherever you go this evening, whatever you do, you will experience a taste of my Shabbos. Shaul climbed back into his carriage, prodded his horses, and disappeared into the distance. Rachel Fagel finished preparing for Shabbos just in time to light her candles. Soon the Rebbe was davening mincha. When he prayed, his soul ascended to a higher world. When he was thus cleaving to the heavenly throne, he was able to reach such high levels that he had the power to beseech God to take away the troubles that afflicted his community. The ministering angels in heaven were dismayed at Rachel Fagel's blessings. When the Rebbe's soul ascended, they interrogated him. Is it not enough that we have to fulfill the blessings you give? Now we have to fulfill your wife's blessings too? Listen to what your wife just did. She blessed a man with a taste of her Shabbos. Why does that man deserve such a blessing? He leads a vulgar life, gambling every night of the week. He has never done a mitzvah in his life. Why is he deserving of her blessing? You ministering angels do not understand, responded the Rebbe. This man never had a chance to taste real holiness. He doesn't even know what Shabbos is. But my wife, such a righteous woman, she could see into his soul. She understood what he needs. That is why she blessed him with the taste of her Shabbos. The ministering angels were perplexed, but they could not refuse to fulfill Rachel Fagel's blessing. They compromised. We will grant him 1 hour only 1 hour of your Shabbos. Rachel Fagel could not know of the commotion she had caused in heaven with her blessing. The ministering angels, the Kruvim glorified, the Seraphim rejoiced, the Elohim blessed. With the arrival of Shabbos, peacefulness and serenity descended. The Rebbe returned home from Shul, and his followers trailed him inside and found places around the Shabbos table. Now, as he chanted Shalom Aleichem, welcoming the angels of peace, it seemed as if they descended from their heavenly abode and blessed him. May your Shabbos be like this next week, as the Talmud says. A home where Shabbos is welcomed with joy and peace. Everyone at that Shabbos table sang, for the Rebbe believed that a nigun enhances the special taste of Shabbos, that the sweetness of the nigunim opens the gates of heaven, inspires awe of God, and lifts the holy spark and returns them to their source under the throne of glory. Shaul opened the first bottle of wine. He and his friends were comfortably seated around a large square wooden table in the inn. The wine poured, he shuffled the cards skillfully, he looked at the cards he had dealt himself, whistled at his hand, turned the cards face down, waiting for his friends to signal that they were ready to start. Suddenly he thought he could hear a melody coming from somewhere. He did not know from where. It was a sweet melody. He imagined that the melody could have been the song of the ministering angels on high. It beckoned him to stand up and walk toward it. He walked and he walked until he found himself standing outside the Rebbe's house. Rachel Fagel was waiting for him at the door, and she showed him inside. The Rebbe had just finished the special nigun with which he chanted Kiddush. He divided wine into little glasses, a taste for each guest. He personally handed Shaul a glass. It was a taste of Kiddush. It was a taste of Rachel Fagel's Shabbos. As the meal proceeded, Shaul lingered on the spot where he stood. The hour the ministering angels had granted had long passed, but he was transformed. The Shabbos meal was interpreted with nigunim and Torah thoughts, for the nigun paved the way for the Rebbe's teachings in order to penetrate the heart of his followers. Shaul sat down and chanted, oblivious to the passing hours. He did not move. He did not grow weary. He did not feel the need to sleep. And all the while, Shaul could hear the nigun playing in his mind. He had never experienced such holiness, and it was all due to his act of generosity and Rachel Fagel's blessing. He could never repay her for recognizing what his soul needed, for blessing him with the taste of her Shabbos. Okay, now, the question is, it's 2 o'clock, do I have to stop? I mean, it's, you know, and it's, Corinne, it's up to you. Okay, you know, the English was on the sheet. There was one more story that I want to share with you. Okay, because this is something, okay. This story, you know, as I told you when we started, why I started collecting stories. All right, what page is it on? 128, okay. This story is called Joy. Okay. Oh, this is not Touch of Heaven. Joy. Take 1 second, the clip fell out. 28, not 128, okay. Okay, it's not a long story, but it's a beautiful bracha to be able to conclude that one of the purposes of us being in this world is to fulfill the Ahavta l'reacha kamocha. This is, and I don't have to explain that to you, right? Okay. Story is from the Chosev Lublin. People flocked to Lublin from all over the Pale of Settlement, for Lublin was the center of Polish Hasidus. They came to see the Choseh, the Sir of Lublin, Rav Yaakov Yitzchak Halevi Horowitz, for they believed that when his soul was created, it was given the power to perceive the wonders of the world. A group of Hasidim were traveling in the back of a wagon on the road to Lublin. When the wagon reached the outskirts of Lublin, The wagoner turned around from his seat at the front of the wagon and raised his voice to get the attention of the jovial people who were his passengers. "Where were you going?" he shouted. "We are going to see the seer," they answered joyfully. "Well, in that case," he said, "do me a favor. Will one of you give this kvittel to the seer? I wrote it a few days ago, and I have carried it in my pocket ever since. I've asked many of my passengers their destination, but you are the first to go to visit the seer of Lublin, the Choseh." He took the kvittel from his pocket and handed it to the chassid who sat closest to him. The chassid promised to put it directly in the hands of the Choseh. The wagoner thanked him, turned around, tapped the horse with the tip of his whip, and they lurched forward. He stopped the wagon in the front of the base medrash of the Choseh of Lublin. As he had promised, the chassid immediately handed the kvittel to the Choseh. The Choseh unfolded the kvittel, held it up to the light. He turned it over and over, then stared at the message for a moment. Finally, he said, "The writer of this kvittel is a special human being. He brings joy wherever he goes." Okay. Again, just to interrupt the narrative, this is exactly the opposite of what the Ramchal is teaching us. The Hasidim looked at one another and at the seer. They were dumbfounded. They did not understand how the Choseh could know anything about the wagoner without having spoken to him. To them, he was a simple wagoner. While they were wondering, the Choseh whispered, "Even at this moment, he is bringing joy wherever he goes." The Hasidim knew that the Choseh did not chatter idly. Immediately, they ran out of the base midrash through the alleys and streets of the city, scurrying around the marketplace, searching for the wagoner. They searched the vegetable stall, the fish stall, the cheese and butter stall, and came to an abrupt halt in front of the flour stall. Throngs of people were crowded around the flour stall. They were shouting, shoving, clapping their hands in an inaudible rhythm. The Hasidim pushed their way through the crowd to the center. The wagoner was dancing energetically, his feet flying through the air. The crowd encouraged him. "More, higher, higher," they shouted. "What's going on here?" the Hasidim demanded of the spectators. "Wait," he said. "Wait and watch. When the wagoner finishes dancing, he will tell you himself why he is so joyous." While they waited, the Hasidim joined the singing and clapping. Finally, he stopped dancing. The crowd dispersed slowly, and the Hasidim formed their own circle around the exhausted wagoner. "Please tell us," they pleaded, "what was your occasion to rejoice?" "After I left you in front of the Choseh's base midrash, I went to the marketplace to search for something to do. As I approached, I realized there was a celebration of some kind about to take place. For I heard the flute and a violin in the distance, but as I drew closer, I recognized the sounds of an approaching wedding, but also great tumult over the sounds of the music. I was told that the wedding celebration was for 2 orphans. But I found out that the tumult was an exchange of angry words, not joyous excitement. It seemed that the groom's side threatened to back out because the bride's side had not supplied a new tallis for the groom, as was the custom. They simply did not have the money to buy one. The people argued vociferously. The young groom stood under the chuppah in tears, surrounded by his people. The bride's people screamed that she was waiting in the house on the edge of the marketplace for the ceremony to begin. I was absolutely heartbroken. I couldn't stand the pain of the bride and groom. So I took all the money that you gave me for the trip, ran to the stall where religious items were sold, brought the tallis, and gave it to the groom. I have never seen such joy when he took the tallis from my hand. I was so happy when both the groom's side and the bride's side agreed to proceed with the wedding ceremony. When the ceremony was over, I started to dance. For there is no greater mitzvah than rejoicing with the chassan and the kala." The Hasidim understood what the Choseh meant when he said that the wagoner was a special human being who brings brachas wherever he goes. As we conclude this parak in Mesillas Yesharim, my bracha to all of you is that we're zelcha to bring blessings wherever we go and whatever we do. Okay, wait.